You're crouched at the edge of a forest. It's 12,000 years ago. The sun is going down, your stomach is empty, and you've spent the whole afternoon pulling roots out of cold mud. There's no dinner waiting. There's no fridge, no Uber Eats, no little glowing rectangle to scroll while you ignore your problems. There is only the forest, the dark, and whatever you can get into your mouth before something gets you into its mouth. And then you see them. A cluster of pale little mushrooms pushing up through the leaves. You're starving. You're not picky. You eat a few. 20 minutes later, the trees start breathing. The ground tilts. Colors you've never had a word for come pouring in from the edges of your eyes. You are terrified, and you are amazed, and somewhere in the middle of all of it, you feel something crack open inside your skull that is never going to fully close again. This is the story of how getting high might be one of the oldest things humans do. And why? This is the strange part. Your brain came factory installed with the exact locks these chemicals are built to pick. Here's what I want you to sit with for a second. Right now, as you watch this, there are receptors in your brain, tiny molecular shapes folded into your neurons, that a mushroom growing in a damp field 3 countries away could slot into perfectly, like a key into a lock. You didn't install that lock. You didn't ask for it. You inherited it, the same way you inherited the shape of your hands and the color of your blood. And so did every human who has ever lived. Every single one of your direct ancestors, all the way back, carried that same hidden compatibility. Trace your family tree past the names, past the photographs, past the point where anyone wrote anything down at all, and you eventually arrive at people who almost certainly used it. People who got high on purpose, around a fire, thousands of years before the wheel. Think about that for a second. We are a species that systematically rearranges its own brain chemistry. On a Tuesday, for fun. Coffee in the morning to switch the brain on, wine at night to switch it off, and a long, weird human history of much stranger things in between. No other animal does this at our scale, with our deliberateness, our rituals, our recipes, our rules about who's allowed and when. So the question isn't just interesting, it's personal. Why is your brain like this? When did this start? And the part nobody really tells you, was your brain ever actually built to get high at all? Let's start from the very beginning. And the very beginning is not where you'd expect. Most people think of magic mushrooms or tobacco or coffee as nature's little gifts. Presents the planet left lying around for us to find and enjoy. That is almost exactly backwards. These plants and fungi did not evolve those chemicals for you. They evolved them as weapons. Take the mushroom you just ate. The compound that bent the trees. That's a molecule the fungus makes, and the leading idea is that it's there to mess with the nervous systems of insects. A bug takes a bite, the bug's brain glitches, and the bug stops eating, or wanders off, or forgets it was even hungry. It's pest control. Caffeine? Same story. Coffee and tea plants load their leaves and beans with it, partly because it poisons the insects that try to feed on them. Nicotine in the tobacco plant is one of the most effective natural insecticides on Earth. We literally used to spray it on crops. Let that sink in. Half the substances humans have built entire cultures, economies, and religions around. These are, from the plant's point of view, poison. Chemical warfare against things with 6 legs. So how does a bug poison turn into a religious experience for a human? Here's the wild part. The reason these chemicals do anything to us at all is a coincidence so precise it almost feels designed. The molecule the mushroom built to jam an insect's nervous system happens to be shaped almost exactly like one of your own brain's most important messengers. Close enough that your brain can't tell the difference. The poison walks up to the lock meant for your own signals, and the lock just opens. And to understand why that lock was sitting there in the first place, empty, waiting, hundreds of millions of years before any human went anywhere near a mushroom. We have to talk about what it was actually for. Inside your brain, right now, there's a chemical called serotonin. You've heard the name. It runs your mood, your sleep, your hunger, your whole quiet sense that the world is still holding together, and to use it, your neurons are studded with receptors. Those locks. Serotonin is the one key carved to fit them. One lock matters more than the rest here. It's called the 5-HT2A receptor. Don't worry about the name. Worry about the age. This thing is old. Versions of it were running in animals before there were primates, before there were mammals. Back when your ancestor was a small, scaly thing in the mud, and the most cutting-edge invention in the history of life was having a spine. For all that time, hundreds of millions of years, that lock had one job. Wait for serotonin. Open for serotonin. Answer to nothing else. And then a mushroom shows up. The mushroom isn't trying to talk to you, it's trying to kill a beetle. But the poison it built to scramble that beetle's nervous system came out shaped by pure, dumb chemical accident. Almost exactly like serotonin. Close enough that when it drifts up to that ancient lock, the lock doesn't ask questions. It doesn't check ID. It just opens. And every door serotonin was quietly managing gets kicked wide at once. That's the high. Not a key made for you, a forgery good enough to pass. Your brain was never built to get high. It was built to feel and think and steer itself with its own chemistry. And the high is just what happens when an outsider molecule slips into a system that never planned for it, and the system, far too politely, lets it in. Now, sit with one more thing, because it might be the strangest fact in this video. You don't strictly need the mushroom. Your own body makes molecules from the same chemical family as some of these psychedelics, in tiny, trace amounts, turning up in the blood and tissue of ordinary mammals, including us. Nowhere near enough to send you anywhere, and we're honestly not sure what it's doing there at all. But the point isn't some secret high hiding in your veins. The point is the wall. The wall between drug and you was never as solid as the word makes it sound. The chemistry that bends the world isn't purely out there. Some of it has been inside you the whole time, idling in trace. The same way those locks sat empty and waiting. That's the part to hold on to. The locks came first. By an almost unimaginable margin, the molecules showed up late, found the doors already installed, and let themselves in. Which leaves exactly one real question. Who was the first to start picking them? And here's where it gets really interesting, because the answer is not us. Not first. Animals get intoxicated. A lot. Birds gorge on fermented berries and fly straight into windows. Big mammals seek out fermenting fruit and stagger around, clearly the worse for it. There are old stories, some exaggerated, some not, about reindeer in the far north hunting down one particular mushroom, the bright red one with the white spots, the one from every fairy tale, and acting very strangely afterward. This isn't humans being uniquely broken. This is humans inheriting something much, much older. There's an idea called the drunken monkey hypothesis, and it goes like this. For our deep primate ancestors, ripe fruit was survival, sugar, calories, life itself. And ripe fruit, as it sits and ferments, gives off a tiny amount of alcohol and that distinctive smell. So a primate brain that found that smell attractive, that got a little pleasant nudge of reward from it, would be a primate that got led straight to the ripest, most calorie-rich food in the forest. The attraction to alcohol may not be a flaw we developed later. It may be a feature we were handed. A fruit-finding sense of smell that just happened to come with a side effect. So before we were ever human, we may already have had a brain that lit up, just slightly, in the presence of intoxication. A reward system quietly whispering, this, more of this. Good. Picture it. Millions of years of primates following their noses to the good fruit, getting a faint buzz as the prize, no idea what was happening to them. The predisposition was already in the wiring, generations before anyone could think a single thought about it. But an accidental buzz off old fruit is one thing. Deliberately seeking the experience, chasing it, naming it, building your whole world around it, that's a different animal entirely. And that one really is us. Which brings us to the most famous claim in all of this. You may have heard it. It's the kind of idea that sounds incredible at 2 a.m. The story goes like this. As early humans spread out across Africa, they followed herds of grazing animals, and in the dung of those animals grew mushrooms, the mind-bending kind. Our ancestors ate them, and the claim is that those mushrooms didn't just give them a wild night. They supercharged the brain itself. That psychedelics, eaten generation after generation, drove the explosive growth of human intelligence. That mushrooms, basically, made us smart. People call it the stoned ape theory. It's a beautiful story. It is also almost certainly not true. Here's the problem. Brains don't grow like that. The expansion of the human brain happened over hundreds of thousands of years, and the way a substance changes you during your lifetime is not the kind of thing that gets written into your children's genes. You could have the most mind-expanding experience imaginable, and your kids are still born with exactly the brain their DNA specified. Mushrooms or no mushrooms. The mechanism just isn't there. Most scientists who study human evolution file this one under fun. But no. So, no. Mushrooms did not build your brain, but, and this is the part worth keeping, there's a quieter, more defensible idea hiding underneath the wild one. Not that the chemical grew the brain, that the experience changed the culture. A group of humans who could deliberately step outside their ordinary consciousness, even just occasionally, might think differently, bond differently, ask stranger questions, see the world in ways a sober brain never would. Not new hardware, new software. And new software shared around a fire and passed down the generations can change a species too. To find out whether our ancestors actually did this on purpose, we stop guessing. And we go dig. Because here's what the dirt tells us, and the dirt does not exaggerate. In the Americas, archaeologists found preserved peyote, a small cactus that contains a powerful psychedelic, in a dry cave in Texas, and dated it to roughly 5,500 years ago. Not a wild plant that happened to be lying there, processed, kept, used. In the mountains of Bolivia, they found a 1,000-year-old ritual pouch stitched together out of fox snouts. Inside it was a kind of ancient pharmacy, chemical traces of several powerful mind-altering substances at once, the very same families of compounds used in sacred plant brews to this day. Someone carried that bundle up into the mountains on purpose, knowing exactly what was inside it. In the high, cold passes of Central Asia, they found wooden braziers in an old cemetery, the inside walls still holding the chemical fingerprint of cannabis. And not the weak, wild kind, but plants that seemed to have been chosen because they were stronger. People were burning it, breathing it in, around their dead, around 2,500 years ago. And on rock walls in Spain, in Algeria, there are paintings thousands of years old that seem to show mushrooms held in human hands, figures dancing, bodies sprouting strange shapes. We can't ask the painters what they meant, but it's hard to stare at a several thousand-year-old mural of a person clutching a neat row of mushrooms and conclude they were just really into gardening. And there's opium, traces of poppy turning up at sites all across Neolithic Europe, and fermented drinks, brewed deliberately, some of the oldest of all. This is the pattern. Everywhere, on every inhabited continent, going back as far as we can dig. Not one accident, not one weird tribe. Humans again and again, independently, finding these substances, recognizing what they did. And then, this is the key word, curating them. Choosing the strong ones, drying them, storing them, blending them, wrapping them in sacred objects and carrying them up mountains. We didn't stumble into this once. We went looking, over and over and over. So the real question is what we were looking for, and this is where everything turns over. Because if you line it all up, the locks that were already sitting in your brain, the molecules that were really just bug poison, the buzz our primate ancestors got off rotting fruit, the deliberate seeking, the mountains climbed, the rituals built, you realize the title was a trick the whole time. Your brain was not built to get high. Your brain was built to do something much bigger, and getting high is a side door into it. Your brain was built to feel reward, so you'd chase food and each other and survival. It was built to dissolve every now and then, the hard line between you and the world, the same softening you feel falling in love, or losing yourself in music, or staring into a fire until you forget your own name. It was built to make meaning, to take raw experience and spin it into story and ritual, and the deep sense that something larger is out there. The psychedelic doesn't add any of that. It can't. It just walks through a door your brain already had and turns the volume all the way up. So the thing that actually makes us human was never the chemical. It was the wanting. We are the one animal that reaches, deliberately past the ordinary state of its own mind, and then comes back and tells the others what it saw. The reindeer stumbles into it by accident. We built temples around it. So the next time you wrap your hands around a hot cup of coffee in the morning just to feel your brain click into gear, you are doing something staggeringly old. The next time you pour a glass of wine to take the edge off a long day, or a song reaches into your chest and rearranges you, or you watch a sunset and feel, for no logical reason at all, that you are part of something enormous. You are reaching for the exact same thing your ancestors reached for in the dark, 12,000 years ago, with a handful of mushrooms and a fire and absolutely no idea what was about to happen. That reaching is the thread. It runs unbroken from a frightened, amazed human at the edge of a prehistoric forest, all the way to you right now holding your phone. The substances changed, the receptors didn't, and the wanting never did. We were never a brain built to get high. We're a brain built to feel more, mean more, and stretch past the walls of the ordinary. And somewhere far back in the dark, we found that certain plants would hold that door open for us. So we kept walking through, and we've never really stopped. And what about you? If you could go back, sit down at that first fire, and watch the very first human discover that the whole world could suddenly feel completely different, would you take a seat? Let me know in the comments. Until then, see you soon.